Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Slow Art Friday. My name is Christy McMillan. I'm the Director of Learning and Engagement here at the Asheville Art Museum, and I'm joined by two of our touring docents, Kay Dunn and Susan Coleman, who will be leading today's conversation. Each Friday at 12 p.m., docents lead virtual, interactive conversations about a few artworks in our collection or special exhibitions. The goal is simple: slow down, discover the joy of looking at art, and talk about the experience with others. For today's program, Kay and Susan will lead us in an interactive conversation about three artworks, two of which are from our collection and one of which is from our current special exhibition, Across the Atlantic, American Impressionism Through the French Lens. We'll spend about 15 minutes or so with each one. Kay and Susan will allow us time to look at each work on our own, slowly, before leading a conversation with questions. As participants, we encourage you to engage in conversation with Kay, Susan, myself, and each other throughout the hour. A few notes before we get started. You probably noticed that your microphone and video were muted by default. We do welcome and encourage you to turn on your video so that we can see who we're talking to instead of having a conversation with little black boxes on our screens. Choose a quiet room and close the door. Silence any alerts from nearby devices as they can be distracting during the program. Try not to sit in front of a window, lamp, or other strong source of light or movement if you do choose to turn on your video. Use headphones and microphone for best sound quality. While you can log in using a smartphone, we do recommend using a desktop, laptop, or tablet in order to see slides and meeting tools on a larger screen. Make sure that your screen name includes your first name and last initial, or first name and last name, so that we know who we're talking to throughout the program. In order to ask questions or make comments in just a moment, I'll make it so that you can unmute your microphone when Susan or Kay or I ask for questions or comments. This is definitely the easiest and most expedient way to participate, and definitely the one that we encourage. A second way to participate is to type any questions or comments that you have into the chat box. And thirdly, you can raise your hand in the participant sidebar, and I will call on you and ask you to unmute your microphone. Typing into the chat box and raising your hand can sometimes take a while to get to your comment, so please do feel free to unmute your microphone when Susan or Kay ask for questions or comments in order to participate. Finally, we are recording, so if you prefer not to be recorded, just make sure that your video and audio remain muted and use the chat box to submit any questions or comments that you might have. At this time, I'm going to make it so that folks can unmute themselves. Please do leave your microphone muted unless you're actively asking a question or making a comment. Does anyone have any questions before we get started? All right, Kay and Susan, what will we be talking about today?
Okay, well, hello and welcome to Slow Art Friday. I'm Kay Dunn, and joining me is Susan Coleman, and we'll be your guides today as we look at our three artworks. The theme of today's tour is We Wear the Mask. In this time of COVID, we wear face mask every day just about to protect ourselves and to protect others, but we wear other kind of masks too. The poet Paul Laurence Dunbar wrote about this in 1895. Dunbar was the son of former slaves, and in his poem, We Wear the Mask, he described how oppressed Black Americans were forced to hide their pain and frustration behind a mask or a facade of happiness and contentment. I'm going to read just the first couple of verses of this poem. We wear the mask that grins and lies. It hides our cheeks and shades our eyes. This debt we pay to human guile. With torn and bleeding hearts we smile and mouth with myriad subtleties. Why should the world be over wise in counting all our tears and sighs? Nay, let them only see us while we wear the mask. Okay, as we look at our three artworks today, we'll explore other kinds of masks that we wear. We'll talk about why we wear them and how they may affect our lives. Okay, let's take a look at our first artwork. take just a moment to look at this one. Okay, what's going on in this artwork?
This looks like a wooden mask, a woodcut. I'm drawn to the eyes, that they're not there, and that whatever background you put behind the eyes is what you would see through the eyes. And also I'm drawn to the face of the snake on the top of the head. Almost looks like a friendly face as opposed to like a snake lashing out.
Okay, so you think the snake itself sort of has a friendly face a little bit. Okay, and you pointed out the eyes that are, like a lot of masks, are empty, I guess. So if you did wear it, you could see out. What else? What more can we find here?
I don't see a friendly face on the snake. I see the rattles at the end of the tail.
All right.
Diamonds on the back. And having grown up in the Southwest, I know that's a diamondback rattlesnake.
Okay. Yeah, the over on the right of the mask up at the top, you see the tail wrapped around there, and that does look like you said, like rattles. So maybe this isn't quite as friendly a snake, but he does have it on his head. So, or this mask has it on its head. Okay, what else? Yes, Sharon.
I imagine the mask, the snake, its position, its coloring, and the straightforward look of the head is his protection.
Okay. All right. So this might be some sort of protective mask. Sharon, yeah. I think you're waving your hand, but I think you might need to unmute.
Unmute.
There you go.
Good morning. Yeah, I'm looking at it. I think the face doesn't have too much of an expression, although he's not smiling or anything, just kind of a placid expression. But I think it's very unusual, unless you're a real snake lover, to have a snake adorn your head. So that kind of takes me back a little bit. Would not be my favorite thing to have included in this beautiful carving. But I didn't know whether that was perhaps something to do with the culture, or perhaps this is a shaman or something where he might be using the snake in a certain way or something like that. Not sure. That might be cultural.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. I get the feeling that it's from Africa, or because the features are African as opposed to Caucasian.
Okay, so not Caucasian, but some perhaps Africa. Okay.
The features that I see and the sense that I get is that it's could be Native American, but I would take it down further into the southern part of the South America, North America continent, and put it into the Aztec realm. The high cheekbones, the narrow face makes it look to me far more tribal American, Native American.
Okay, so you're seeing features on the mask itself that if, for example, the artists were copying the features of the people that it belonged to, it might represent more Native American, either North or South American. Okay.
Up on the solstice, and what I see is something that's perhaps Peruvian. So
okay.
Northern South America, Central American.
I see, I'm looking at the nose. That's what makes me think it's African, or to use the word Negroid. I don't know. There's another word that I should use. I can't think of what it is, but like the African, the black racial features.
Okay, you're looking at that and seeing some features that would represent that to you. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I think it might be South Pacific area.
Okay, another idea might be South.
I know.
So we're all sort of circling around this idea that it's native. It's some native culture probably, or we call it native. That's not the right word.
No.
It's from a culture other than ours, but perhaps people
It's not Caucasian.
Not Caucasian, right? I'm not sure. Perhaps some sort of tribal society somewhere. Okay.
I'm looking at the snake's face, and before I saw the snake's face where the eyes are, those two little dots and the mouth to me looked like a little animal, like a little koala bear, where the snake's eyes became the ears to that little animal. And that's the first face I saw. I didn't see the real snake's face. So to me now it looks like a little animal, a sweet little animal inside of the snake head.
I see that. Does everybody see what she's talking about? If you sort of relook at that face and think of eyes as ears, now I can't unsee that. And it's just this
I know.
cute little koala face, like you said. So it changes
inside the snake.
changes the whole thing. Okay. Well, let me ask you this. What kind of, we talked about who may have made this, but what do you think its purpose is or was?
I think it's a ceremonial mask because of the opening of the eye slits. So you can wear it and see while you participate in the ceremony.
Okay, so you think it's actually meant to be worn. Okay.
Yeah.
All right, who else? Anybody else have a thought on that?
It could be decorative. A decorative mask, to be hung on a wall. I know, being from Alaska, we have a number of native Alaskan masks, and a lot of times that's what they have become as opposed to being worn as their decorations.
Okay, so today, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, Ellen, we have a mask from Alaska that I could take the computer downstairs and show you. It looks very African.
Okay.
It also, I have a number of them. I could do the same thing. That's a good idea. But also in Alaska, depending upon what the group is, the ethnic group is, they're all different. The Tlingit masks are different than the Athabascan masks and the Inuit masks. And I'll tell you the truth, I know I could identify a couple of mine, but not all of them. I don't remember what all of them are.
Okay.
So,
Yes.
All right. So there's a lot of masks out there. What
Do we do we know that I don't know the size of this that would dictate somewhat whether it could be worn. It also could
10
be
inches high, 10 inches high.
10 inches.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
so that's small.
It's small. Okay.
Yes.
And we do know that there are, groups that make decorative masks for sale today. So, perhaps it could be that. So we talked about the snake. What might the snake symbolize? I don't know if we talked about what it was, but does anybody have any ideas on that?
Micah, you put something in the chat box. You said that it's often a symbol of transformation. Would you like to talk about that a little bit more?
Hi, I've just studied indigenous cultures and their animal medicine for years, and that's really all I have to say. It's a symbol of transformation, the snake shedding its skin, rebirth, along those lines.
That's interesting. Okay, so yeah, I can see that the every year shedding the skin and becoming something new.
And if you put my personal fear and bias aside, in many cultures, snakes are a positive influence and not the negative one that we, and particularly our culture, tend to put with them.
Exactly.
How would you feel wearing a mask like this? How would it make you feel to wear this mask?
Powerful. Very powerful.
Why do you say that?
It's just how I feel. I'm not sure how to elaborate.
Okay.
Sorry.
That's okay. Anybody else? If you
I
had
think
this
I
mask
think
on?
the powerful also, but because of the positioning of the snake and the way it's facing, and that it could strike out at any moment for anyone that came near the mask, that the snake would be just able to lunge out.
Okay. So what would people's reaction be if you had this on? What do you think? What would their be reactions be? You say they might draw back in fear. Anybody
Oh,
else?
yeah, definitely back off. Yeah.
See, in our culture, I think back off. I don't think that's true in all cultures, but I see it as very culturally.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Maybe I should wear it when I go to Ingles later today.
Might be a good idea to get one like that.
I'm interested in the terminology that people keep using, our culture. And I'm wondering what you mean by that, because I can think of plenty of groups that live within the United States in different areas that actually, I'm thinking maybe of like church groups, for example, that use snakes or handling snakes as part of their worship practice. And so, like, what does that mean, our culture? I don't know how to answer that question, but I think it's really interesting for people that are using that to maybe be a little bit clearer in the way that they define what you mean.
I would personally say, since I said it, northern
You weren't the only one.
yeah, okay. But Northern American, typical WASP, White Anglo-Saxon, not even Protestant, Catholic, Anglican, Presbyterian, but in seeking to be politically correct, just regular people, knowing that and I thought about when I said it, when you said it, that there are people within our culture, that within the Northern American culture, that see snakes differently than maybe I do.
Okay. Let's take a look. I've got a couple of other things I want to ask you here, but I think it might be helpful to look at the label for this so we can see what we're really looking at. Okay, Rattlesnake Mask, we got that. Virgil Crow, and it's, he did that fairly recently, 2009. Okay, and I will tell you that Virgil Crow is Cherokee. So it is Native American, and it's from not far from here. So you talk about our culture as part of North Carolina culture too, I guess. Historically in the Cherokee culture, this would have been a warrior snake mask, and it was worn in a war dance before battle. So here's my question to you. Think of the battles we fight every day at work, maybe with our family, waiting in traffic. Think of those battles we fight. What kind of mask do we wear when we go to battle?
Well, we don't have a snake available.
I was thinking about makeup. You know, for me, it's kind of like, I don't know, it's one of those things where it kind of gives you, it could give you strength to feel like it's kind of like an armor. Okay.
All right. Okay. Well, just a couple more little things about Virgil Crow, and then we're gonna move on. But he, as I said, he does live in Cherokee. He is part of the Qualla boundary area there, and he became interested in carving masks in particular because a lot of the elders were dying out and were taking their knowledge, their skills with them, and he wanted to make sure that wasn't lost. And so that sort of inspired him. And he studied with a lot of the greats, a lot of the great Cherokee wood carvers. Okay, any other comments or questions on this before we move on?
I had a question. Do we know the type of wood that was used, or like how many pieces? Was this like one piece, or was the snake a separate piece? Or
I do not know. I would guess it's one piece, but I don't know. Christy, do you
I think it is one piece of wood, Laurel, but I don't think that I know the actual type of wood that was used. I can look when we go forward, and I'll put something in the chat box.
Okay, great.
I just put in the chat box that I really like the way that he used the grain of the wood to create the expressions. Look at the forehead, look at the grain of the wood. So he spent a lot of time looking at that wood.
Yeah, beautiful. It's really beautiful. A beautiful.
I wanted to add one thing with your discussion about the snake, the fact that it is wound there so in control and facing directly in the center, ready to attack. And the position of the snake is very valuable in that particular mask, I think.
I wonder if he based it on a particular person, maybe a tribal leader, or someone of maybe renown in the Cherokee tribes, or was it just, I'm trying to think of the word, not individualized, but
right. I think it was more in the tradition of what what they would have been producing over many generations, probably.
So in other words, it would be this would be the style of masks that the Cherokees would make.
Right. He studied with elders in the tribe who had been producing these. So there's probably some similarities there, I would imagine. Okay, well, we probably should move on to our next work. That was some great conversation. I'm going to turn it over to Susan now.
Hello. Thank you all for joining us on this beautiful afternoon. This is our second artwork, and I'd like for you to look at it closely for the next 10 seconds. Okay, let's get started. What's going on in this artwork?
I'm drawn to the partial figure on the right, the profile there, that's a person somehow looking at this other mask, which looks to me to be kind of, I don't know, more cute or fluffy or furry, just the way that it has whiskers and the big eyes and the green around it. But I'm not totally sure yet on the entire meaning.
Or do you see one profile or two? I actually see two profiles. Look down lower. Doesn't that look like a profile too? Maybe a littler person.
The mask almost reminds me of some of the works that Picasso did of African masks, and when he was in his Cubist and pre-Cubist period. And there's something about it that just reminds me of some of the masks of, and the paintings of masks and of African figures that he did.
And it's very aggressive.
Pardon me?
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. What I've heard so far is we've identified an object in the center which someone identified as saying that it reminded them of a Picasso African mask. And then on the right side of the painting, there was an identification of a silhouette of a person, and another person saw two silhouettes. Why don't we take a look at the face in the center of the painting first? And how does that face affect you or make you feel?
I see it as very aggressive. It makes me take a step back.
Okay, what do you see that makes you say that it's aggressive?
The teeth.
The teeth, okay.
The wide open eyes, the flatness. The artist, this is it has a very primitive flat look to it. And so that too makes it more aggressive.
This is Micah. For me, I get the feeling that the center face is going through some sort of transformation, possibly leaving this world. And the two faces to the side, to the right, are witnesses. They're witnessing some sort of transformation.
What gives you that sense of it undergoing a transformation?
In the outer perimeter, it looks like clouds and motion or water, something that's moving. The mask-like face in the center. It's hard for me to describe sometimes what I feel when I look at art, but it seems to be in motion, and the eyes are so big and alert to this movement of some kind of transformation.
Oh, okay, very good.
And it's striking to me that one side of the face has the lines coming off the center, whereas the other one is intact. And I think that fuels my feeling of transformation.
I'm noticing now at the top right, almost looks like a person up there, where Michael was talking about the white with the motion and the could be steam or water. But at the top of the head, if you go to the right, behind the head, almost looks to be like a face of a person to me.
The mask itself has a very primitive look to it. That's why I keep thinking of the of Picasso and his masks that were out of Africa.
Going back to the poem that you read earlier, I just see so much energy, which I would think emotion, thoughts, connection to the world, connection to God, whatever, a whole being that's complex and a lot of energy in it. And it has a mask over it, just like in the poem, and having to be more like the dark silhouette to the rest of the world. So it's two sides of the person, what it might appear to the world because of this mask that it puts over it. But underneath, a lot is going on.
I'm noticing also more color. When I initially looked at it, it appeared to be gray, black, white, but I'm seeing reds near the bottom right there, red in the teeth, green, and then to the left of the head, the yellows. So you have reds and greens and yellows and whites, as well as the grays and blacks. So it has more color than it initially appeared to.
There's a very strong contrast to me, at least to me, between the silhouettes on the right and the actual mask. As I said, the mask seems very primitive, almost childish in its painting style, and yet the silhouette seems like it's very well defined, and there's a very strong contrast there.
I also see to the right of the figure, the right-hand side, the lines are very organic. So it looks somewhat like hair, like long hair coming down. And on the left-hand side, it's much more masculine. The right-hand side, because of the organic lines, has a softer, more feminine feel to my eye. And the straighter lines. The other thing I was going to say is all of the lines that surround the figure that are diagonals give it that somebody had said it has energy. It's so I think it's those diagonal lines or those. What am I trying to say? Lines coming out, lines projecting out. Yes, those two.
Can I say a word? I like the urgency of it. It felt like it was in a hurry. It was done quickly, and it was for a very important reason. Maybe fighting off sickness or possession or something. So it has that urgency to it.
We've had some just excellent discussion and comments. Just to summarize some of these, the intensity of this, the energy radiating from this with a reference to the almost horizontal lines coming off on the left-hand side of the picture, how there's motion in it, and then the word transformation. And a lot of different things have been brought up, including the intensity of the features, particularly the mouth and the eyes, the use of color, the softness of, I think it was referenced to as hair coming off on the right-hand side. What is the purpose of this face that or mask that we've been talking about in the center of the picture or the artwork?
When I first saw this, I thought, oh, that's a shield.
A shield. Okay.
Yes, but then I thought, no, on further inspection, it's like a mask over a face. In other words, if you look closely to me, the anatomy behind it, behind the black, behind those brush strokes and the green, you can see the mouth, the teeth, you can see something underlying. I mean, there's like 2 or 3 dimensions to this. Actually, in the right eye, you can actually see the pupil and iris. In the top of the head, you can, I mean, I'm in medicine, I'm in medical, so I see potential as that being brains. But the brush strokes on the sides are fascinating. Transformation occurs to me like something is happening. You know, it's rather fascinating. From something very simple as my thought of a shield, and then the more I looked at it, the more intricate it certainly became.
Someone mentioned that on the left side, it looks like the mask is coming apart. So I'm seeing the mask
exactly
more like a jail, or they've been jailed in, but it's coming undone, and they're getting ready to explode with all the stuff that's been bound up inside. They've been in darkness, and that's kind of what's happening around us now.
So given that comment, how would you describe the facial expression?
I think there's a lot of pent up emotion that's getting ready to come out.
Okay.
Anger is the first emotion that I see. Along with the pent up emotion, I agree, but it's like it is ready to explode. It's not a calm mask.
let's just take a moment and go back to the beginning when the two silhouettes on the side of the picture were brought up. How would you describe these onlookers? And you can see the outline went around both the silhouettes, where the face is on the side.
Well, it's a very stark contrast, of course. And I don't know why I've been looking at this, of course. The idea of the Beauty and the Beast comes to mind. That really dark contrast.
Do we have any other thoughts on that?
I feel like, and I can't explain this, I feel like the transformation is, it's leaving this world, and it could be a dream that someone is having. Mm-hmm. But I feel like the main mask centerpiece is swirling and moving, and the eyes are wide open, possibly because they're passing from this world to the next. And then some members of this indigenous tribe are witnessing this passage.
So Judy had a thought over in the chat box, and I'm hoping that she will actually unmute and clarify, because I'm not sure. She said the silhouette profile of the person on the right makes it appear as an imagined god or scene. And I'm wondering, Judy, were you saying that the figure in the center would then be the imagined god, or the silhouette on the right would be the imagined god?
Yeah, the image in the center would be the imagined. Mm-hmm. The silhouette on the right looks very contemporary to me, and the painted part of the face, the mask, seems to be some sort of expression that the person on the right is either thinking about, looking at. It seems to be a cultural and possible time conflict or contradiction going on in this.
So Judy has referenced more or less the relationship between the person on the right and the mask. In terms of that relationship, she talked about it being a godlike relationship. Any other thoughts on that?
Yeah, when I look at those two figures, hi, this is Allison. When I look at the two figures, they're neither of them are looking at each other. Mm-hmm. The silhouette looking to the far left, as I'm looking at the painting, and the figure in the middle, the object in the middle, is looking straight ahead. So it's almost like they're not thinking about each other necessarily, but there's energy between them. So to me, the object in the middle has a lot of energy exerting out. It seems like anger or fear or sort of an untouchable emotion. And the silhouette, being very flat and kind of looking ahead, is not paying as much attention to that from my interpretation. It just seems to be there, but not as aware of what that energy is from the middle.
I see it that the figure on the left, or on the right, on our right, the silhouette is observing the mask or the masked figure. And there is a distance between them, but that figure seems, and it seems for some reason, I'm going to say it seems female, is trying to decide what the masked figure is, but there is such a contrast, which everyone has said, it's very contemporary and very primitive.
Very good. Oh,
Look
go ahead.
I see.
Whole different point of view.
I see that. I have a totally different. I see the figure on the right as being what is presented to reality. The mask, the expression, the almost uncontrollable emotion that's in the face facing us is what is actually going on internally in this person that's on the right.
Huh.
I'm wondering if
I've seen, yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
I'm wondering if
I'm
this
done.
is like a lynching or a tar and a feathering event, and the person's in extreme pain, and these are the people that have to be look on and watch the torture of their loved one in silence. That's kind of the things I've been reading lately, so that comes to mind.
Sharon, you had your hand up for a while. Sharon, you're muted.
Unmute.
There you go.
When I first looked at it, I thought the mask is intended to be kind of scary looking and eerie in some way. So, but obviously painted with great abandon. I mean, there's no careful structuring of it, and one side doesn't look like the other, which is unusual. The teeth to me are very unusually painted also, because the eyes are so primitive, but the teeth were very carefully done, or more carefully done. So that got my attention right away. But then obviously, because when you look at the black profile on the right, that was painted afterwards, because you can see through it and see still some of the white, you know, that was put on ahead of it. That's very carefully done, because you can very much identify that it's a nose and a mouth and a chin. And so with the great abandon that the mask was painted by, contrasted to me very much with the careful painting of the profile. So this person has a definite plan for what they want to say. I'm not sure that I know exactly what they want to say, but I think there was a plan there.
And there's one more comment from the chat box, Susan. I know you need to move on, but you had asked about, you know, what might the relationships be between.
Yeah.
In the chat box, Micah had suggested maybe it's some sort of ancestral relationship or family relationship.
Excellent.
I'm still seeing more of a person in the back to the right at the angle at the head, almost like a man's face with hair and an arm and hands kind of flashing out like into the sky with lightning or something of that nature. And I just see a male person behind the mask there at the top.
I see that too.
Okay. I do want to move on, because we have one more artwork that we'd like to share with you today. This has been a fascinating discussion, and especially about the energy and the mood of this artwork. And it almost feels to me that as people looked and talked about it, the longer we did that, some of the initial responses changed in what people felt and saw. Anyway, Christy, can we go on to about the artist? The title of this piece is Teaching My Child How to See Grandmother's Mask. And the artist is Lani Holly. And he is an African-American self-taught artist from Birmingham, Alabama. He created his first artwork in the late 20s following the death of family members in a fire. And he carved sandstone to make grave markers. Mr. Holly calls his work poignant meditations on what we have to deal with. And in much of his artwork, he deals with realities of being an African American. And African masks are part of his African ancestry. And in this artwork, there's a deep connection, spiritual, motion, transformative, all the things that everybody has brought up between the onlookers and the mask. So I think we should move on to artwork number 3. Thank you.
All right. Okay, well, let's take a look at this one. Just take a moment to look at it closely. Okay, what's going on in this painting?
Well, to me, it looks like a young woman, and she's holding a handheld small mirror looking at her reflection. But I'm drawn to the pastel colors throughout, as well as the, what I'm going to call fuzziness, the soft, out of focus of her features.
Okay. All right. So sort of a softness to it. A young woman, and the painting itself has a sort of a soft quality. All right. What else? What else do we see?
The background is interesting. I'm not sure what the background is. It has a very organic look to it, maybe big leaves, something like that. It's hard to tell. But then there are also little bubbles that look like those plants that you get at Trader Joe's at Christmas time to put, with the little berries on them.
Yes. Yes, I see that too, sort of radiating out from her in the background. And I'm looking at 2 different, one of my screens shows it very clearly, the other doesn't. So I'm not sure what yours looks like, but yeah, there are like little look like little flowers on a stem.
It's almost an effervescence.
Mm-hmm.
There's something very romantic, 19th century romantic about it.
Okay. What makes you say that?
Maybe it's the coloring, the softness of it. I know the dress that she's wearing looks rather contemporary, but there's just a look as if the painter is using that a romantic, almost ethereal look about her. But it also reminds me that this is a portrait. There is something about it that says this is a portrait of a young woman.
Okay. And what is that? What do you see that makes you say that?
Just the way her features are, the way she is almost posed. I mean, it's as if she were playing around and then he caught her, or the painter caught her in a certain angle and said, that's it. I can't quite, okay. Something about, but that's the style of it, like 19th century romantic.
Okay, 19th century romantic, and perhaps a posed,
semi-posed,
not, yes, okay.
And her hair is very free. Her hair is very free flowing.
It is. It's beautiful. And
she's
I don't know if any. Yeah, it's really very pretty, very loose.
She looks like a young a teenager.
Okay.
I'm intrigued by the fingers, the detail and the motion, and the way both hands have the fingers bent and positioned.
They are really are. He has really captured them. The hair, the fingers, in the hair, and then on the mirror.
She looks like she approves of herself.
Okay. Well, let me ask you this. Let's talk a little about her. Okay, when you first saw her, what was your very initial impression of her, of this young woman?
My impression was that she is a beautiful young girl, and she is looking in the mirror I'm connecting this to the theme of today, the mask, in which way she is going to look most pleasing to herself.
Oh, okay.
It seems she's also arranging her hair a little bit, but the expression in the mirror would tell me, I mean, that's why we look in the mirror, right?
Okay. Maybe
How's
she's
my hair, how's my,
practicing a little bit.
and that expression of, she's very pleased with what she sees.
Okay.
Yeah.
When I look at her, I don't see a very young girl. I see somebody who's sort of 20s, 30s, and who is let her hair down in her dressing gown, and that she is revealing her true self as she's looking in the mirror.
Interesting. Okay. All right. And what would you say about her true self? Like,
she seems like she is admiring herself. She's pleased with how she looks now, with her hair flowing and down. And somebody said it might be a contemporary type of a gown, but to me it looks a little bit more like a dressing gown that somebody would change into after having been somewhere formal, like a nighttime gown. And that her hair might have been up. Yeah, her hair might have been up, and now she's down and sort of free, more herself.
Or she's dressing to go out, but she hasn't put on the dress yet, but she's admiring. I really feel like she is approving of herself and the way she's looking.
All right. So we're talking a little about what she might be thinking about. What other thoughts or ideas do you have about that? What might she be thinking about?
I don't think she seems all that happy or pleased. I think her expression's kind of neutral as she looks at herself.
Okay. All right.
It's interesting to me how tiny the mirror is. That mirror would be like for your lipstick or your eyes, like compact. And here she's supposed to, in this little mirror, see her entire face and hair and makeup. So kind of funny.
So yeah, more like a little prop maybe than a useful mirror, but she's not standing in the bathroom in front of the mirror anyway.
Yeah, you can unmute yourself.
Yeah, when I first saw it, I just thought John Singer Sargent. I love the way he does these kind of soft portraits of people, if you've seen a good deal of him, which I'm sure you have. And also it does look like a time period before our time period, because to me also, if it is a dressing gown, which it looks more like a kimono kind of thing. It's something which I know my mother-in-law loved those, and it was just kind of a time period before we have the usual, lounging kind of outfit that we would have in them, if it's in the morning or evening or whatever, that she's at home and arranging her hair. But it does have such a beautiful look to it. And also I was drawn to the mirror. It's also, and on the back of the mirror, looks like a small painting of, like a Marie Antoinette or somebody like that on the back of the mirror, which again, I remember my grandmother and generation before us would have something like that. And they'd even have it in their reticule or their purse and whatever to take along with them, which I don't know about others, but I don't tend to carry a little mirror like that anymore to, to check your visage when you're out. Anyway, it's beautiful, just absolutely delightful to look at. What a wonderful choice.
Well, let me ask this, since our theme is about mask, do you think she's wearing a mask?
No.
No.
You don't think she is? Okay.
This
I
gets
think
back
she
to my
is.
makeup comment earlier, though. Like sometimes, you put on a mask figuratively or metaphorically that you want the world to see, and you can be someone completely different behind closed doors.
And to me, it's interesting the tone of the skin flesh tone of her face versus her neck.
Mm-hmm.
Her neck is very yellow.
Ooh.
Mm. Yeah.
And I don't know whether that's a mask of makeup on her skin that makes it more pink in her face versus her neck, or if that's just more of a from the light. But it looks very intentional to me.
But look
yellow.
at her arms. Her arms are closer to her right arm or right arm looks very much similar to her facial tone, and yet the yellow on the other arm, the left arm, there's the yellow there, so that might be a lighting situation.
Yeah.
To me, it does look like the lighting and the shadowing making the coloration for the neck and the face and the arms. But I'm looking by the elbows there. It appears to be lace. It almost looks to me like the sleeves have lace on them.
Yeah.
But I keep wondering, where is she? Doesn't it look like she's in a cave? It doesn't look like big stones behind her.
The background does look sort of like that. I don't know if you can see it on your screen, but yeah, the pattern does sort of resemble big stones, I think.
It doesn't look like a drapery or a wall, right? So it's kind of an interesting contrast to her and her look.
It does look like drapery to me. That's, just more abstract. But the concept of makeup, I don't wear makeup. I never really have. And so what Christy was saying about makeup, that part of its functionality is to create something of a mask.
Mm-hmm. Let me follow up, because I know we're running toward the end here, but during this pandemic, let me just pose this question. Where we've all had to stay at home, many of us, I'll admit it myself, have become more relaxed, let's say, about our hair, our makeup, our clothing. And so in a sense, we've sort of stopped wearing masks, unless you do have to go in public or on a Zoom meeting, perhaps. So do you think, when things are back to normal, do you think we'll return to our old habits of clothing, hairstyles, makeup? And men on the line, shaving beards, perhaps.
One thing I've noticed is that more, myself included, more and more women are letting their natural hair color come through from dye, because they either haven't been able to get to the hair salon or, whatever reason. And it's been true. It's a phenomenon that's happening within my family all across the US. And I've noticed it with friends as well. And I've noticed commercials now where it seems like more women have silver or gray hair. And there's even a few commercials where it shows the hair growth coming out. And I think that's a mask. Dyeing one's hair, I've done it for many, many, many years, just recently stopped. And so I think there is going to be a transformation of how we mask. I think we'll still mask in certain ways. People do it for various reasons, protective or, trying to promote something of themselves, whatever the reason is. But I think there will be a transformation, because we've undergone such a huge shift in our country and the world because of this pandemic. I think it's natural to expect masks to change as well.
Okay, interesting. All right.
I have a painting. I'm sitting with it on my lap. I got this in 2003, and this is why I really came on, because of masks. And people, this is done by an artist in California, and it may be very hard to see, but
now that's better. That's better. Yeah.
Okay. And you can see the idea is that how we all mask ourselves in conversations, and especially women. And that it's called Disguised Conversations.
Hmm.
But when I saw this at an art show in Union Square in San Francisco, I had to buy it, and I whipped out my checkbook, and my husband looked at me and said, "Don't you think we could talk about it?" And he's always had this very sort of this sort of feeling about it, and I love it.
Okay.
I can't
It
quite.
speaks to you. Yes.
Pardon me?
I said it speaks to you.
It speaks to me, and people have seen it in my house here and in Alaska, and they just, a lot of people really get attracted to it. I go to my husband, "See, I told you," and he just doesn't quite get it, let's put it that way. But that's the thing that always gets to me about masks, you know, that we're all masking ourselves at times.
Yeah. Okay, well, let's, some wonderful comments. I guess we should take a look at some information about this. This is, first of all, let me tell you that this painting is on view now at the museum, and it is part of the exhibition Across the Atlantic, American Impressionism Through the French Lens, which will be there, I think, through April 19th. If you haven't seen it, it's gorgeous in person. It's absolutely gorgeous. So it's by, this painting is by William McGregor Paxton. He did paint it in 1915, so early 20th century. He is best known for his paintings of upper-class Boston women pursuing leisure activities in finely decorated interiors. That was really primarily what he did, although he did other works too. I think he painted a couple of presidents, for example. But he was very drawn to the beauty, the serenity of the settings, and, you know, the detail in his work. So that is really our final work today. Any more comments on this one or any of the works that we've seen today?
I love the very different types of portraits and media, and therefore very interesting discussions. Thank you, everyone.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks to Kay and to Susan for choosing those three very different artworks. I love it because the docents are really good about choosing things that have these common themes, but that we might not have ever thought of together. So thank you again, Kay and Susan, for choosing those and for leading this conversation. Thank you to all of you for coming. As always learn a lot on Slow Art Friday. Next Friday, our topic is Discovering Rural Landscapes, and our docent Megan Pyle has chosen a painting, a print, and I think this one is also a painting. So two paintings, one of which is also in Across the Atlantic. So if you haven't seen the exhibition yet in person, please consider coming down to the museum. We have a lot of COVID-19 safety precautions in place to keep folks safe. And if not, then of course you're welcome to join us and see some of these artworks online during these and other programs. I hope you all have a great weekend. Stay safe. See you soon. Take care.
Bye-bye. Thank you very much.
Thank